You're coming in, welcome. We're so glad you're taking time to spend an hour of your time with us. We'll just hang out for a minute and let folks get connected, get their audio turned on.
Hi, Brad. Look at you. Look at all these people. There's Melody.
I'm jealous of the people who are outside.
So nice seeing your faces.
Hi, Hannah.
It's cool. Oh, kind of missed this. It's been a while.
Hey, Carol.
I always feel like I want to say the romper room. I see Brad and I see Michelle.
I said that one time and nobody knew what romper room was. And I was like, man, am I that old? And I'm the only one who remembers the mirror. And I see Tommy and Billy.
Oh, I remember that.
Exactly.
Oh, I missed
You're not, Melody, it's not that you're old, you're cultured.
Have you guys seen there's like some TikTok videos going around right now that are making people feel old because they'll be like, so if somebody was calling and you were going to do the sign for like telephone, what would you do? And most people, you know, our ages like this. But if you go and ask somebody that's younger, they go like this.
Oh, really? That's
and then
hilarious.
there was one that was like, how do you roll down a window? How would you signal somebody to roll down a window? You know, we'd all go like this.
Yeah.
Younger kids go, mm.
Oh, I never thought of that.
That's funny. Of course, now with the telephone thing, you're like, I'm on the phone, and they're like, hey, we're hanging out. So, no, it's not away. All right. Looks like everybody's on as far as I can tell. Garrett, do you see anybody else hanging out?
No, there's no more waiting room.
All right, so thank you again, everyone. I'm Charlotte Alverson with University of Oregon and Director for YTP, and really appreciate you taking time to spend a few minutes with us on this beautiful, at least in the Valley, it's a beautiful Monday afternoon. So our goal today is Jesse's going to do some updates about the database, let you know what's going on our end with that and what we're hearing from the field, see if you have any similar experiences, and then we'll just open it up to you to talk about questions. I know the TAPS worked really hard to put together a strong series of pseudo summer academy, and really appreciate the thought that went into that. And for everyone who was able to attend and participate in one or more of those sessions, again, thank you for your time. If you haven't completed the evaluation for that, please do that. We do take that information seriously and try to build our next training from the feedback that we get from you guys. And we just want to have some conversation with you. So that's our agenda for today. TAPS, did I miss anything, Lisa?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we'll start with Jesse and some updates for the database.
Sure, I can give you some updates, but before I do, let's have somebody hit record. Garrett, can you handle that, please? So
it's being recorded.
Perfect. That way we can post this and help get these answers out to others that may or may not be on the call that want to hear it again.
And just one more thing, Jesse, along that housekeeping that I forgot to mention. If you don't mind, in the chat, list your name and what site you're with, please. Thank you. Okay.
All right, so the database has been released. You guys have had a couple weeks to work on it. And in a minute, Lisa's gonna knock on my door here and bring my water bottle. So I'll be interrupted, and I know that. The first question we received right out of the gate was, hey, I'm having trouble entering my students that are now 24 years old, 25 years old, something like that. Thank you. And we've acknowledged that, and I know that the solution has been fixed. So if you have a student that is now over age 23, you may go ahead and input them into the database. Some people were saying, hey, I'm going to have to falsify my record and I won't be able to add this data or follow it through because they were a student from 2015. And we're saying, well, that's not right. So there's been a fix in place. The rule is to input a student, they must be into YTP before age 23. After age 23, from now on, you can manipulate the data. So that has been addressed. I'm not sure if anybody out there was experiencing that, but I wanted to point that one out. Let's talk about other ones. Some people had an eligibility date only, but no IPE date, and then they were unable to save the record. That's by design. It's a really rare circumstance that occurs, and when it does, you should be in contact with your TAP. So contact your TAP and we can help override the data. It's usually the case that the student is unengaged at that point, and the follow-up data would probably remain unengaged if, say, the student left the state and you lost their phone number. So there'd be minimal follow-up that your TAP would need to do. Should they need to go in there and modify the record and say, hey, the student's now engaged, they're able to
Keep this on.
Amy Johnson, I just muted your phone. I hope that's okay. You can unmute yourself at *6 if you need to at some point if you guys are on the phone and want to chime in with a question. What else is going on out there? Genders. A couple people were saying, hey, that the gender is wrong on some of my students in these sites. We were joking around with the TAPs, and it was said, well, hey, at least they're only half wrong, because what's happened is that some of the males or some of the females in the system have been labeled as male. So users will need to modify and look at all of their records from their student list and ensure that the gender is correct. That it's a slight glitch that we're unable to fix, but we'll spend time with you, and manually we can fix it. It's just from the programming side, we can't go in and address it. So each student record needs to be looked at closely for gender. What else? Number 2 students, what we used to call
Jesse?
number 2. Yes.
I have a quick question. On the gender, does it have to be the gender that they identify on their SSID number, or the gender that they identify as of themselves?
The database, that's a great question. It has that little blue arrow on it. If you hold on that, it says, please enter the gender as the student identifies themselves, which is, it now gives the 3 options, male, female, and non-binary.
Even if it's different than what their SSID says?
It's the user's preference at that point, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. And that was Kathy, correct? Couldn't
Yes.
see for sure. Okay. Good
And
question.
that would, Jesse, that would be the same for ethnicity too, how they identify, not what might have been put on their stuff years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Good questions. The last thing that's came out of this launch to you guys, and these are all errors that we have found or seen or became aware of post-launch that we were unable to find with our TAP accounts and testing as users with a clean data set, would be that we've learned that no number two being a student that is currently open in YTP, and then a transition specialist is engaged in follow along with, they find out the student lost their job, they were closed to VR, they want to refer to VR again and continue. And that would be a rare circumstance that used to happen around the state in some locations. They'd want to create another account and have the student be number 2, John Smith, number 2. And that didn't really work. And now with the SSID number or SSID field, we cannot put that field in twice. So it's YTP is now a one and done service for students in schools, with the caveat and the teach and train moment being that we're training every student how to access adult agencies and adult VR as part of transition services. So when they're done with YTP, they can enroll into the voc rehab agency as an adult on their own. And it might be that you have minimal involvement with that. A transition specialist may say, okay, I'm going to help you, and I'm going to take you from here down to the voc rehab office. We'll ride the bus so that you know where the office is as a reminder, and this is how you enroll, and then it's kind of hands off from there. So it's just a minimal intervention for a second round student. I hope that makes sense. So those are the 4 glitches that we've seen roll up and come to us. And the one about the SSID number wasn't a glitch. It was just for you guys to know about, that change with SSID number lets us correlate and tie back to research purposes much more easily in terms of the reports that are sent down our way when we're disaggregating data on a deeper dig. So I hope that makes sense. I think I have one more, and that relates to the use of the system. And if it's ready, I'm going to screen share right here. I hope you can all see the training database that I'm in now. Yes? Thumbs up, Mary Jo? Yeah? Okay, I can see your picture, and that's about it. Thanks. So let's pretend I wanted to see my students. I'm logged in. These are all of my sites. If I'm a transition specialist, I would see my site named right here. So I'm going to go to reports. And I'm going to look at my schools. Ducks Go Beeves. This is Lisa's school that she created. Maybe we should kick her out or something.
What?
But
No.
Ducks Go Beeves in the duck system. We can get the details right here. Here is a detailed list of the students that are in this current biennium, or in this case, last biennium, but you'll see that these are mostly from 7/1/19 onward for these students. If I want to modify the record of my students, this is where I click on that, to the duck on the last name. Or you click on the last name, and that's the students that are active in your site that you're working with. Because if you clicked students right up here at the top, you see how that's black. If I went there, it's going to take me to a list of all of the students in my site, even though I might not have permission. So some sites have multiple schools in them. And it's going to be confusing to look at the students list here, I've just clicked on, and know which students belong to my school. Because Dummy Data Duck was probably not entered by Lisa at Ducks Go Beeve School. Dummy Data Duck was probably created by myself one day. But there's no way of knowing that unless you actually go into your reports and look at your school detail report and then modify your student list from there. So I'm hoping that's making sense. I'm seeing some head nods.
Jesse, I think like when Josie had brought it up the first time and we were looking at it, it was very confusing because when she hit students, she got students on there who had been already closed, 12-month follow-up, everything. And she was like, do I have to go back in and even get SSID numbers in those and all that? And that was no. But so then it came back, so you don't have to update all those kids that have already done their 12-month follow-up. All that's happened. If you go into the report part of it, instead of your student tab, you go to the reports and do it that way and go through all your students, make sure all the data that's in there is correct. Those are the ones you want to update. You don't have to update every single one in your student list if they have 100, if they're already done their 12-month follow-up. Does that make sense? Okay.
It might be good though if you would look at every student just in case, because in the old data set, some people had a 12-month date in there, but not a 6-month date.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there's a lot more students on your YTP list if you've been around for a while than the ones you need to update, because a lot were brought over and some people said, why are they brought over? It was the builds, because some people needed theirs brought over because they hadn't finished the story. So there's a lot more students that you see who have actually been finished with YTP.
Well, folks, that's really all I have from the list of glitches that we found. I know that there's some potential frustrations out there, or confusion, or like, for example, why didn't we know at the start of the biennium we weren't going to be able to input a student twice? We didn't find that out until just about a month before the build was turned on. So there's no way we could have notified you any sooner than that. It is my fault for not addressing that on the last Community Practice Summer Academy round 4. That was the one detail that was left out of that equation at that point in time. So I apologize for that. Aside from that, what other questions do we have? Or what might have you seen in the field now that's came out of your time that you've had to play around with the database?
Hello. I do have a question. I had a student who passed last year, middle of 19. And so her data's there, but I have, there's no follow-up for that student because she died. So yeah. How do you want me to fill in, or what do you want? Just leave it. How do I deal with a student that has passed?
It's a good question.
Well, go ahead, Jesse.
The answer is going to be they will be unengaged in terms of the data count. So there's no way that we can really account for that right off, Corey. But if we can find a workaround for that in a rare circumstance, you'd contact your TAP and then we would go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That has happened in the past, Corey, years ago, that I remember that coming up, and it was just not to put anybody, they're just unengaged, and so you just have those dates. The hard one. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Nobody's having any problems at all? You guys are so amazing. Look at Yesenia.
And I think it's just a good time too to kind of, if you have questions or ideas, that more people than just you are going to have them. So it doesn't necessarily need to be like a database glitch sort of thing. This is like as we're rolling forward.
Well, I don't know whether to bring this up or not, Michelle, but if Jesse, will you share that screen again? Because it's regarding the diploma, but if you share the screen, the Duxco site details on one student, I was going to ask for clarification on that one line, because I noticed on your diploma line, you had regular diploma and it was student intake at time, high school certificate at time of application.
Mm-hmm. On the other student, I picked a different student this time. So here's your list. At the time of application, what?
Can you share it, Jesse?
You're not sharing.
You're not sharing.
Thank you. I thought it took it. Here you go, Carol. At time of application, we're asking what certificate does the student hold, if any?
Okay. And because we work in the high school, at the time of application, almost 100% of mine are still in school. And that's what you want to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we would expect to see, yes.
Okay.
There are instances though, Carol, where students you know, after they've graduated, they come back, you see them later in the summer. They could have been a dropout, so they're not in school. You know, there are instances where, you know, they graduated in June and you don't sign them up until July or August. So there are instances where that happens.
Okay.
Quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, and if you scroll down, there's when you close them and exit them, there's a place to put their diploma also. There's another, so at YTP exit, you get a chance to say they got a diploma here, high school completion. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Carol, weren't you saying that that would default to autofill what you had chosen above and you had to change them?
Yeah, when you put in one of those down where you are right here, if you click regular diploma, it goes all the way across. But a lot of times my students might exit when they're still in school and then they get the regular diploma, you know, later. But so the YTP exit says still in school, but the 6 months says regular diploma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's by design, Carol, too.
Okay.
They were still in school, and then within 6 months they completed, and they do have a regular diploma, and that's correct.
Okay.
And then if they're working, right below that, you would click engaged, or if they're in a post-secondary training, they've gone on to community college, they could be marked engaged. And then the 90-day, just as a refresher for everybody, this gets marked if cumulatively, anytime from the date of exit to 6 months, has the individual worked at least 90 days. And if so, mark it even if they're not working on the actual date of the 6 month check-in. So that's a new line right here.
Jesse, do you want to go over again what's going to happen on August 15th?
Sure.
I think that's for people to remember that, and that there is another video for after August 15th on follow-up from before.
Basically, these fields will remain the same. However, your 6 month and 12 month will always be grayed out. So you will no longer have the ability to go in and manipulate any of this data for 6 and 12 months on your current student detail list after August 15th. So we're asking for you guys to get that done in order that the system can begin to work correctly, in that you put an exit date in, it will forecast, but then only within 6 months or within 1 week plus or minus of the 6 month date, you can have a 2-week window to manipulate your data for the 6 month. And 1 week prior to the 6 month date, the system is designed to send you a reminder email to say, you have some data to go into, and shoot you out an email so you'll update your student record. And then after that 2-week window, again, it will be grayed out and default to unengaged for all of the fields below the date. So that is a safety check to ensure that these fields are filled in and that the unengagement rate is correct and valid.
And I think what's lovely about that is you get that note, you'll get that email a week before that date. Like here, you'll get it on what, 5/22. You would, that gives you a week. If you haven't already, hopefully you've been texting those students and you really know what your students are doing and putting out any fires as they come up during that follow-up time. But that lets you know that you've got to enter data and you've got that, you know, that week. Get going and make sure you know what's happening with that student and do that legwork so that you can enter it right at 6 months or at 12 months.
Just to clarify for everyone, does this feature work on existing students? Because as of 2 weeks ago, it only worked on new students entered. Jesse, did you confirm that it's actually working in the existing student base?
I don't know, Garrett. It's designed to work, but on existing or new, I'm not sure how that is right now.
And I think that's just one of the things that like everybody do keep asking these questions. And then if you wonder, like, is it supposed to be this way? Just reach out to your TAP. Like this whole year, we're going to probably run into weird little things. You can only do so much behind the scenes and you just have to get people using it. So I think it's expected, and just keep open communication with us, please. It is really helpful.
So on that note, then do not rely on an email in your inbox. If you enter an exit date, just to be sure, add those dates to your calendar to follow up. We also have a number of questions that have popped up in the chat, so I'm just gonna pose those and we'll go through those.
Yeah, while you're looking at those questions, Garrett, it's designed to work from today onward, and today being whenever we turned it on, June 25th. If that is your exit date, it should work. That is how I believe it's currently set.
Okay. So just don't rely on that. All right, first question. From Brenda, she asks, I have rehab students whose IPE or closure dates are not in the database. And the no longer have an ROI, I guess that is VR, to be able to release that information to me.
Lisa, what do you say to that?
So
They
I
don't.
responded to the email about that. So in the IGA, it says that we will be sharing information. I know we only have this open until August 15th. They had an ROI during that time. So I would say help provide that information so that we can have the data in there like it should have been, but the database wasn't available. So.
And remember, all of you, ROI is release of information.
Sorry. Thank you, Mary Jo.
Next question is, on the second round, can we enter pre-eds for bus trip and VR referral? That's from Anita.
So I think what Anita's saying is, if somebody is returning to voc rehab, could the transition specialist document it as pre-eds? And the question in my mind goes to, is the individual still a student? Is that correct, Lisa? And if the individual is still a student, then yes, they could be recorded within the pre-eds database.
All right, next question. What are folks doing who cannot access SSID numbers right now? SSDI numbers, sorry.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm thinking if you're in that situation and you can't reach your admin or somebody at the school who can get them for you, talk to your TAP. I mean, what we can try and do, administrators and people will start returning at the end of July and the beginning of August. A lot of them take the first couple weeks of July off. And so if your school district is just shut down and you have no way to get that stuff, just let us know, communicate really heavily with all of us so we know what's going on, and then we can be squeaky wheels together to try and get that access that information.
Hi, this is Priscilla. They should have access to their students' records through the school district. Just because it's summer, that doesn't go down. So, you know, for Salem Kaiser, it's
totally in different places right now. Like some schools shut down physically for cleaning and whatever. So I think we can work through whatever's going on. Just communicate a lot for sure.
I meant through their district email. They should have access.
Yeah, but and on that note, some transitional specialists don't have access to the school database, you know, where they can get IEPs and stuff, and so that causes other problems. How do you get that information if you don't have access to the school database system, you know, like ESIS or whatever it is? If you don't have access to that, that would be hard.
That's really odd, because how can you do your job without access to IEPs? And I mean, we really had to fight for that, but we finally, you know, as YTP specialist, Salem Kaiser was really good about giving us access.
Totally agree with you. There's weird times when like somebody's new, everything's been shut down, the tech person's on leave. I mean, it's weird situations we find ourselves in, and we can help everybody navigate that.
One of my districts just flat out said no.
Yeah. And then
several times
we got to get a report for you instead of access to that. So there's workarounds, but it's like squeaky wheel, right? Here's what.
So, hey, this is Lane. I've asked that question. I don't know if anyone else did too. And the only reason I asked it is because Michelle Pruden, who I don't know if she's on here, I didn't check participants today, if she was having problems getting those. Now, I don't know if you guys know Michelle super well, but she usually gets what she needs from who she needs it from. So I'm not really sure what the thing was. Was it just one case she couldn't find the number? I know she was frantically trying to update her database. So I don't know what the situation was. She didn't give me the full story. I thought I'd just throw that out there. But she's the kind of person that will exhaust her resources before even asking me anything of the nature. So I thought I would just throw it out there and see if anyone else was having any issues with that.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, that's a valid
Thank you.
point. Another spot you might remember to look could be in the pre-EDS database. In order to enter pre-EDS on somebody, you have to have their SSID number.
Okay.
Maybe another transition specialist in the site. I know that's not the case in Michelle's school because it's a one site, one school scenario, but just as an aside there, potentially could have that info.
All right. Next comment and question. Not fair to tell us after the intake that a YTP student returning to VR during COVID can't be in YTP after doing all the work. Shouldn't we have been informed in the change at the start of the biennium? I think Jesse tried to touch on that. It's something that we found out after things happened. I think it's about the number 2 student that is not possible to be entered anymore. And with that, it's we'll help you to do the best we can, but there are things that we're limited in doing. And if we can't enter students at this point, then that is how it is. If the student is still in your follow-up period and return to VR, you're always welcome to work with those students and help them. But it is that teaching moment to show students how to start navigating the adult systems as they are in the process of transitioning. And as transition specialists, we would really encourage you to point them in the right direction, help them out. Even if it's a second go around, it's just going to be a different level of support that you will be providing. Then there's
Was that Eileen's question,
That is
Garrett?
Eileen's question. Eileen has a follow-up question that says, what does the school district do? My district put her back into OR SPED, and she has an active IEP and case manager, again, question mark. And Eileen, I think you have to explain a little better what you're after here. Eileen, are you there?
I'm guessing that's relating to.
I was having trouble unmuting.
Okay, no problem.
So she's back in the school district. She's in the transition program now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm asking, do they then turn around and say, no, you aren't part of the transition program. You're not in YTP. We're going to not be having this IEP or case manager working with you after all.
No, I don't think they could do that. I mean, they have to legally provide transition services under their IDEA programming. But YTP, as we always said, is the enhancement of IDEA services. There's nothing that says IDEA is, or I mean, YTP is the only transition program, or that YTP serves all students in any school just because an IEP case manager says so. So we're an add-on. If you have the intergovernmental agreement in your district, then that's a supplement to any programming that's out there.
And I think also, Eileen, a role that you can play, you know, we talk about the goals of YTP being student outcomes, but also systems change, is all of you guys end up being these experts and sort of like accessing adult services and referrals. And so a teacher, you could help show a team, an EA, a teacher, how to do a referral to VR so that that team learns. For all the students who aren't YTP, how do you do that? You know, so it's that kind of dual hat that people wear, I think, about sometimes too. So you're not doing the direct service, but you're showing how they can do it so they can do it again.
Yeah, unfortunately, our district, if they're not in YTP, then they get exited.
From the 18 to 21-year-old program?
Well, she's not appropriate for that. She wouldn't qualify for that program.
Well,
She didn't get a modified diploma?
She has a modified diploma, but her needs aren't things that would be addressed or helped by the transition program.
So she was closed with VR as other, or so she
was a rehab.
She was a rehab.
Uh-huh.
And you went through all 6 and 12 months with her? And
No. No, I had just exited her a couple months before.
So you can help her in follow-up.
Yeah.
You know,
You've got that 12-month follow-up. You work with her and do what needs to be done.
Yeah, we've already done the intake and she's been filling out applications. I do them on my computer and share screens. And she's got an interview lined up in a few days and we're practicing for her interview. It's just a shame that, you know, we don't get to count any of that because it took a lot of my time this summer.
Sure, you get to count it. She gets her job in
Oh,
a
yeah.
day or two, and then at 6 months she's engaged, and
Yeah.
that counts. And at 12 months she's engaged, and that counts.
Yeah, she counts. Don't say that. That's Eileen, you got it. You're doing great.
Agreed.
Yeah. Does that not make sense? Are you confused by that or what we're saying, or?
I think the question might be, why do you think she's not counted? Because
Well, she doesn't count towards the benchmarks.
Why not?
For intakes, for IEPs, for
She's already been counted for the benchmarks for IEPs and intakes.
Anybody that had an intake for the first part of our biennium counts.
Everybody counts.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
I think Eileen doesn't understand, guys. Why don't you explain it again?
Oh, I think I understand. Okay. I understand that we need a 35 intakes for my district, and it would have been nice to have counted her because I put in a lot of time and effort with her, but
well,
okay.
But she is still counting, Eileen. She started counting when you did the original intake, and she is still in the process of ending her story. So she hasn't finished the first go around. Now, that she needed to go back to VR was an unfortunate event during the follow-up, but you are still in the process of working with her through the follow-up, and you just help her to get back to an engagement status. Right. And that's what you've been doing. So you do get those engagement counts at the end when she is back at work.
I think, yeah, it would be really, could we open a database sample right now, one of our sample kids, and show what we're talking about specifically for everybody, if that would be helpful? Or would that be helpful for a lot of people, do you think? Yeah, I'm seeing heads shake. Jesse, can you show us a sample duck student? Maybe we kind of walk through all of that.
I'll try, but I'll also say about students that would have counted twice. You would have, in the past number 2 system, not counted them as a number 2 until at least after the 12 months was done anyhow. Mm-hmm. So I'm bringing that up as an aside. That's important to differentiate here, because that's not the case of what we're talking about when we're talking about number 2s. So to understand the students, we look at reports. Is my screen sharing now? It shows that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If I look at a summary site report for DuckGo Beeves, Lisa, they were orange and black, right?
Yep.
We can see that there's a count here of 11 active students. Below that, we see that there were 4 active students from Biennial 1, which was a 4-year cycle in this current build, from July 1 of 15 to 6/30/19. 4 years captured this biennium number 4 data. And 2 years moving ahead, each 2 years on July 1 starts a new biennium. So July 1 of 19, we were hopeful to be able to turn on this database. It didn't happen for another year due to circumstances beyond our control. In that time, there were 8 intakes done under this current biennium. But everybody counts of the 12 that were enrolled. It's just which grouping of students do they fall into. Some say bucket, some say grouping, some say cohort. This side of the equation, that side. So we're in a cohort model, 19 to 21. But if I look at this full list of students, which it's going to, some of these students on this list, like Showy Duck was January 1st, 2017, counted last biennia, one of those 4, while the rest of these ducks, or the most of them, counted in the current biennia. Anybody after 7/1/19. So does that make sense from those 2 reports, what we're talking about, folks? And Michelle, was that what you wanted to see?
That, and then I think when you go down to exit, I think it would be helpful to sort of walk through that
Right.
as well.
This is the same type of thing. What our database does is it groups your exit engagements based on the cohort at which you entered on your VR application date. So here's the dates again right here, 7/1/15 to 6/30/19. How many people exited? So in this case, we have 1 employed at exit, 1 employed at 6 months, none employed at 12 months. And over here, we had 1 employed at 12 months. But it
So
breaks.
that student, Eileen, if I was hearing you right, I don't know when the intake happened and stuff, but if rehab, they exited or they closed rehab, that counts, either last biennium or this biennium.
Right.
Would it be this, it sounds like. YTP exit counts. When you're doing your 6 and 12 month, all of those things they all count. And the thing, I'm moving my cursor around, but I keep talking with my team about is like, when we look at cohort or bucket data, it's so that we can get more accurate data. But last year's biennium students count in your story of how your site is doing historically, and right now counts. But what it allows us to do is look at like more disaggregated and detailed data about what's working for whom, how long are things taking, all of those sorts of things. But you can see, like, as we're looking at this page right here in front of us, it's actually multiple years spanning across. It's not just the 2 years. So the benchmarks, those benchmarks that you see at the very top up here, Jesse, like the statewide benchmarks, are one piece of all of the data that we're looking at and working toward.
Mm-hmm.
But all of the data does count in a larger story. So to me, it sounds like your student counts totally and should be celebrated. And maybe Garrett, you work with Tiger Tarleton, yeah, could hop on and look at like that exact student with you and help you understand that hopefully it does, if we're understanding correctly, count.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm sure it would be more stressful in a non-COVID year when we suddenly had a lot more intakes than we need, but there's no way we're going to make that goal of 35 in this biennium. So that being said, the fact that she doesn't count as a new intake won't really matter in the scheme of things. I'm going to totally be doing exactly what I would be doing with her, whether it was one more number or not. So it doesn't. And as somebody pointed out about follow-ups, it does make the difference that she will be engaged at 6 month and 12 month instead of not engaged.
Oh, totally. Yeah, you're the one who enters that data. So you're gonna put it in, and if she's engaged, that's great. If she's not, maybe she will be at 12 months. And you always should be checking with students, between exit 6 months, 12 months, just little text back and forth. How's it going? What do you need? So that students know that you're there if you need any help or anything. So it's
that's part of the problem, is that I do check in a lot with them.
Yeah, that's not a problem, Eileen. That's amazing. That's great. That's what you should be doing.
It's a lot of work though.
I've done it before. I agree with you completely. I know. You're doing great.
Also, if there's like an expectation that you're doing transition services for every student that's enrolled and has an IEP, I don't know if that's true or not, but if that is the case, then that can, you know, we can help support with that and follow up as well. Because, yeah.
I think this next question from Eileen is really interesting, and I'll read it. And this is a COVID thing, and I think it's could be happening to a lot of people. What about follow-up for a student on unemployment that was working at a restaurant in Multnomah County and is still in phase 1? She has not lost her job and is making more on unemployment insurance than she ever did working. Is she unemployed and unengaged? You know, there's that people not going, once stores open, once places open, and if their job is offered back to them and the person goes, nope, I'm not going, I'm making more on unemployment, that's not going to fly. That employer then will say, this job was offered to that person and they did not accept it. Who knows in this time what's going to happen with that. But if an employee is offered their job back or offered a job, they don't get unemployment insurance anymore because they've been offered a job and they turned it down, especially that. Unless there's medical reasons, unless there's, you know, there's so many variables.
Well, in Multnomah County, there's jobs that didn't ever open. So
Mhm.
the restaurants are.
Right. If they're not employed right
That-
now, or like at the time that the 6 or the 12 month would have been, then that would be right counted as unemployed and unengaged. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, that we're going to run into a lot of different COVID scenarios.
We haven't talked about that one. Do you guys all?
Yeah, I was going to say what we're going to do there, Michelle, not to override that is, but we'll get back to you, Eileen, on that one. We need to discuss it and figure it out how it should count.
I mean, she's definitely got income. It's kind of crazy.
But it's unemployment income.
But she's not, you're going to have to still call it unemployed and unengaged because otherwise you'll
question
all the different stories out there.
Yeah, she technically has the job though, because, you know, she's been in contact with her employer and he has definitely not laid her off or fired her. They're just
what I did. I have a student like that. So she's furloughed, right?
Yeah.
I've just waited. She was in her 90-day period when she got furloughed. And so we just didn't close her and I didn't exit her. And when they open again, if she actually goes back to work, then I'll start up that 90 days again.
Yep, that's perfect. That makes sense.
This is why we love your guys' questions. That's why we ask them, because somebody else is going to run into it.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Joyce.
Hey, Joyce.
Hey, Joyce.
Hey, sorry, I'm on a phone. So I'm wondering, as far as on the database, is it, let's see, I'm trying to look on my phone. Is it total in application? Is how much, is that like our benchmark for this biennium?
What? Say that again?
Okay, so like our benchmark, what we're trying to get, like we're supposed to have 55.
Right.
Is it where it says total applications previous and current? Is it that number we're looking at on our reports, or what number?
Good question, Joyce. You're looking at the percentage number, and on the right hand side of that little squiggly tilde line. So your student base is always your denominator. So for easy math, let's say it's 10, and if you have 8 in, you're at 80%. I'll screen share what I'm talking about here.
I don't know if that's what she's talking about, Jesse. I think is
like
the bench.
So you're
wait, like where it says site total, and then there's that squiggly line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have 7 somehow. Okay. Like all those numbers are weird on mine. I'll just bug you personally.
All right, we'll Zoom sometime, or I'll make
Okay.
it out to visit the farm in a socially distanced setting.
I think that's a really
Cool.
common one, and I think go look through your, I mean, that could look, and you know, if you haven't entered since last June, you know, or July, end of July, first of July, I'm sorry. You know, that's going to be confusing, but you, your benchmarks are your outcomes. How many kids got jobs? Remember all of that. It's not just how many are in application, but how many are working? How many did you get jobs? How many are engaged? That's I think even more important than how many kids you have. You know, it's the outcomes that we're looking for.
Yeah, just looking at it, all those numbers are like way off. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll play with it and then bug Jesse.
And remember,
okay,
Michelle has done a video on the thing talking about the reports and how to read the reports. So don't forget to look at that one too.
On the website?
Mm-hmm. Don't forget those videos.
But on the screen share right here, you see in application. And this is talking about of your student base number that you're looking for, which I know, Joyce, you know that. But the student base number is your denominator for all of your math here. So how many VR eligible did you have? 6 out of 10, they're at 60%. If they did 12 applications, they would be at 120% with this site, with that example. So you can exceed it if you exceed your student base numbers referrals. But remember, you're looking at engagement, and if you exceed on applications, and you may have a lower engagement rate. So we're hoping that everybody can hit their 70% engagement rate. All right. We have about 5 minutes left. We can wrap up a little bit early if there's no other questions.
Yeah.
Sounds
Anybody
good.
else? Nothing? You guys are all rocking it, huh? I'm gonna check my people after this. Make sure they're all done. I see you, Yesenia.
You log in, Mary Jo, and see
I
who
see you.
see which sites logged in and who's inputting data, because that the database tells us if you've been in now, and we'll know. So
we're spying on you. No.
We're here to help you out. Kathy says some haven't had time. We say you have until August 15th. That's one more month. So
yeah.
There's time between now and then.
Yeah, and we know you're busy. We understand that. We get it. I'm teasing.
You'll get there. You'll get there. So, all right. Thanks everybody for your time and attention and being here with us. We will be in touch soon. Send your tasks an email if you have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Good to see everybody.
Bye.